So in my island update for this week, we're going to be talking about the reality of you guys getting a fine if you're coming to Mallorca on holiday for this summer. We're also going to talk about tourism protests as well. Yes, that's been in the news once again. And I have cruise news and a weather forecast for the week ahead. But we're starting this video on a Monday morning. I've got my Monday morning frappuccino. I'm down here on Magaluf Beach. Had quite a late night over in Puerto Poyensa last night. It was really good fun. You'll see the result of that in an up and coming video, so subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Also check out my live stream from last night too. But we're gonna start talking about really, and this is a bit of a follow-on from my video from last week, and it's about the reality of you guys picking up a fine if you're over here on holiday. Now the reality is that 99% of you won't. The majority of you are going to be coming here on holiday. You're gonna have an absolutely fantastic time. You'll leave with nothing but a bit of sunburn or a great suntan and also some fantastic memories. But there's always a few that will ruin the holiday experience, and it's kind of these guys actually that we're going to talk about in this video today. Now I'm guessing actually that the people that should be watching this video won't be watching this video, but I'm going to just talk about like how and why some tourists may be fined this summer. But like I said, and I want to start off on a note here to say that this isn't going to be something that you guys worry about, and really the whole purpose of this video is about having respect to the country that you're visiting this summer, whether it's here in Spain or, you know, whether you're coming here to Mallorca or whether you're going elsewhere in the world. So just following on from last week, there has been the threat of tourists getting fines from buying from illegal street sellers, and from the comments that I've seen last week, no one has been fined, no one's picked up a fine for this. But the whole idea is that people do not buy from these street sellers, and they actually purchase from legal traders, from sole businesses and from markets as well around the island. You're not going to find illegal sellers, well, you're not normally going to find illegal sellers having stalls in any of Mallorca's markets, and you're going to know a legitimate street seller because they will have the table and they will have the whole stall set up, and they will have a license as well. So maybe the people you shouldn't be buying from, quite possibly, maybe the people that have stuff lying down on the floor on the sheet, it's very unlikely they're going to have a legal license to trade. But as you know, we do have a housing crisis here, we have an affordability crisis. Please direct your holiday spend towards the legal businesses and the very hard working people who live on the island and pay their taxes and pay all their social security. So that really is the point of that video. But I also want to point out as well that the police aren't going to be on every single street corner watching out for illegal activity taking place, because with the amount of people that we've got coming over here for this summer, well, that's just not going to be the case. So for example, it's obviously not going to be illegal to leave litter on the streets. I don't think it is anywhere in the world, but I mean, it's something that's almost impossible to police here as well. And once again, as I've said, the majority of people coming here on holiday will not be littering. I've never seen any destination with so many bins. We've got so many bins here on the island. There's just no excuse not to put your litter into one of those bins. You'll see them in all my video footage as well. I can't escape them. But the sad reality is that in resorts such as the Playa de Palma, we still have a huge littering problem. I did touch upon this in one of my videos from over there earlier this year. So once again, it's just a matter of having respect. The amount of times you see bottles just left on the street, or takeaway boxes left on the street, and there's always a bin within a few paces from where you're standing here as well. Can't escape one. I can just even see one just across the way here. So like I said, there's no excuse to be littering on the island. However, you are going to come across huge fines for antisocial behaviour, and we're talking here about drinking on the streets and fighting and that kind of thing. Of course there should be huge fines for antisocial behaviour, but like I said, this isn't going to affect the vast majority of viewers watching this video. There are also going to be fines as well for balconing, which means jumping from one balcony to another. So anyone caught of attempting to do this, yes, they will be fined, and rightly so. But also, I had a comment left on the channel this morning from a viewer who said that he overheard a conversation from locals being annoyed by tourism, and they were being annoyed by the fact that drunken holidaymakers were urinating against their gate outside their villa. So rightly so. Does this mean you're welcome in Mallorca? Of course it means you're welcome. But what is not welcome is this kind of antisocial behaviour. And if anyone picks up a fine for this, well, once again, you know, it's not the kind of tourism that's wanted over here on the island, and it's not tourism that's needed. What we do welcome over here is holidaymakers coming over, having a fantastic time, and also treating the island with respect. And like I said, this information isn't for 99% of viewers watching this video, so I just want to make that really, really super clear. And when you talk about this out of context as well, it makes it look like the island is awash with drunken tourism when it's not. It makes it look like the island is awash with policemen fining tourists, and it's not. So you're just talking about one topic here, and it can just get blown completely out of perspective. I did, however, make a video a couple of years ago about beach rules over here in Mallorca. It's still very relevant today as it was a couple of years ago, and I'm going to drop a link to that video in the description text below. I'll pin it at the end of this video too. But the main thing that will probably affect you guys coming over here on holiday isn't about drunken tourism, but it is about clothing. And while it isn't in the holiday resorts deemed anyway inappropriate to be wearing beachwear, like down here in Magaluf, we see people in bikinis walking past this video here, or shirtless walking past this video here. But when it comes to sightseeing in the old towns, when it comes to going into Palma, I would say cover up, put a shirt on, and just dress respectfully, because once again, it's all about having respect for the country that you visit. I have heard of holidaymakers being asked by locals to put shirts on if they're in Palma, if they're going into a church, or they're sightseeing, just to put a shirt on before going into establishments. Even along the Palma Nova seafronts, for example, as well, I do know of restaurants that do ask that people do go into the restaurant with a shirt, and they do cover up if they're in swimwear. So that's something else to bear in mind. You're not going to get a big fine for it, but you will see on Magaluf Strip a sign that you can pick up a nasty fine if you do run down the strip with no clothes. And that means being naked. It doesn't mean wearing a bikini top and shorts or something like that. So like I said, holidays on this island are for everyone, and it's just about being respectful to those around you. Also, as well, I was at a lunch last weekend over at my friend's house in Campastia, and I was just talking to her neighbours over there too. They have a few Airbnb properties around where they were living, and they were complaining to me as well about the noise coming from the Airbnbs, from holidaymakers having karaoke machines blaring out at 1 o'clock in the morning, and just being largely disrespectful in what is a community and what is a neighbourhood as well. So I would say, if you are renting an Airbnb property, whether it's legal or illegal, bear in mind that locals are within their rights to call the police, to have the noise shut down after midnight. But if you are coming on holiday, like I said, just have some respect for those around you too. There's talk now about Airbnbs being banned over here in Mallorca, and you can almost see why. Not just from the point of view of the housing, the lack of affordable housing here on the islands, but also the lack of respect that so many people have. And once again, I'm talking about a small percentage of people coming over here to Mallorca. If you're living amongst this during the months of the summer, it's not great. So like I said, if you are renting an Airbnb, just be respectful to those in that neighbourhood as well. Otherwise you could end up having the police being called out, and if you're staying in a legal property, then that could get shut down too. Also in the news as well, we've seen news about the possibility of further smoke-free spaces being created in Mallorca, and I did have a question about this on the live stream from up in Puerto Poyensa yesterday. Will you get fined for smoking in the smoke-free area? The chances are you probably won't. Now, as you may know, and I've pointed it out on my videos, that there are quite a few beaches around the island which are now designated smoke-free spaces. If you are smoking on one of those beaches and the Policia Local, if the local police do spot you, you could well pick up a fine. But once again, it's all about having respect. That's all it is. It's all about having respect when you come here. Please don't smoke on the smoke-free beach. Families take their kids to these beaches and they want to enjoy a smoke-free environment. And these smoke-free spaces may well roll out in the future. We're talking about a return to smoke-free terraces in restaurants and bars. Already restaurants now, as they are pretty much everywhere in Europe, are smoke-free, but they're thinking about extending this. A law hasn't been passed about that just yet, but it is in discussion, and I will update you as and when I know more. And in which case, at this point, I'm going to say subscribe to the channel because I try and bring you up to date with all the holiday news that you need before you come over here on holiday, as well as all the travel guides, the live streams and more as well. So hit that notifications bell and don't miss those videos. This leads me on to, while we're talking about having respect, Perfect. I mean, this kind of leads us seamlessly onto the next topic, which is about the up-and-coming protest that we have taking place in Palma City on the 15th of June. You've read about it in the papers, and Linda, lovely Linda, has sent me a Daily Mail article with the following headline saying, "Here we go again. Defiant Mallorcans vow this year's summer holiday protests will be bigger than last year's as mass tourism from Brits, just the Brits here, is making their lives unbearable." Oh, once again, this is another deliberately triggering and incorrect headline, and I'm probably going to get comments about it as well, so I'm just bracing myself for those. First of all, it's going to be held in the centre of Palma, well away from any resorts, so you're not going to see any tourism protests in resorts, and they're not protesting against you guys coming over here on holiday. It's about the fact that nothing significant has been done to address the housing shortage that we have, and also about limiting areas of mass tourism as well. It's almost like tourism without limits. So this protest is being made. It's not saying that they are anti-tourist and anti you guys coming to the island. And my goodness me, I spoke to a lot of people over in Puerto Poyensa yesterday, and the overriding theme that I had from everybody who I spoke to was that everyone was unbelievably friendly in the hotels, visiting the hotels, and some holiday makers actually, especially I think it's Cedric and Kathleen who I spoke to yesterday evening after the live stream. They were staying for something like their 15th or 20th time at the Hotel Miramar, and they told me that the hoteliers are almost like extended family. They've been going there for so long. It really is a home from home experience. Same goes as well in the restaurants. Everyone's been having a great experience. Everyone's been very, very welcoming and very, very friendly. So before I start getting all the comments about I'm not going to Spain this year and whatever, what you're reading in the papers and from the Daily Mail by reporters who don't actually live here on the islands are presenting a very different version of the island, what is actually going on here. And of course, we've got the right to protest here, and people do protest. And like I said, nothing really has been done about it. And it's got nothing to do about Brits making lives unbearable. That's not the case. So once again, it's not something for you guys to worry about. Okay, so let's move on to take a look at the cruises coming into Palma Port for this week, in case you're over here on holiday and you want to plan your day trip into Palma City. Now, last week we had very few big cruises coming in every single day of the week. It was quite quiet over in Palma Port. This week is the complete opposite scenario, and it's looking to be a little bit busier. We've got basically every day looking very busy. We've got 2 big ships in almost every day this week, with the exception of Friday. On Friday, we've got 3 big cruise liners coming in. We've got the Allure of the Seas, we've got the Costa Pacifica, and we've got the Morella Discovery cruise. And that is going to see a total of 11,000 cruise passengers coming into Palma on Friday. So maybe give that day a miss. All the other days of the week are going to be mildly quieter, with an average of around 7,000 to 8,000 cruise passengers coming into Palma. There is no one standout day of this week to go and visit Palma, so if you are going in this week, expect it to be busy. That's all I can say. Maybe get in early, get out early as well, maybe avoid the heat too. Which moves us on to the weather forecast for the week ahead. Well, we seem to have slipped out of spring and sprung right into summer very, very quickly over here in Mallorca. I'm absolutely melting here in 30-degree heat right beside Magaluf Beach. But we do have some lovely weather this week. Looking at the outlook, tomorrow, Tuesday, is going to be a lot hotter. We're expecting highs of around 34 degrees. It will cool down as we head on further on into the week. We've got a slight possibility of showers on Wednesday morning. It'll probably materialise to absolutely nothing in most of the resorts, but I can't see anything too major rain-wise, and it's looking like it's going to be very, very dry. It is going to start to warm up again as we head on towards the weekend, so the outlook is looking good. We've got plenty of sunshine, so if you're coming over, make sure you bring a hat and make sure you wear lots of Factor 50 sun cream. Okay everyone, I'm going to be out and about in the resorts once again this week. I've got plenty of content to come out on the channel as well. I'm going to drop a couple of videos appearing both here and here on YouTube for you to check out. But in the meantime, you can find me on the Facebook group and on my Instagram, also called Mallorca Under the Sun. And I can't wait to read the comments on this video, but thanks for watching and I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye for now.